Do you still remember the cast of Barney Miller? They once brought laughter to millions of viewers from one unforgettable police station. But after 5 decades, life took a painful turn for many of them. From serious illnesses and family heartbreaks to sudden deaths fans never expected, their stories became far more emotional than the show itself. Join us as we uncover what happened to them and honor the legacy they left behind. Barney Miller was the calm center of the 12th precinct. Tired, patient, and somehow still reasonable while New York kept sending one strange problem after another through the door. He was the man behind the desk trying to keep detectives, suspects, paperwork, and precinct nonsense from boiling over. In 1975, Hal Linden was 43, and that steady grown-up energy fit the role perfectly. Today at 95, he still carries that relaxed old-school charm people remember from the series. After the show, he kept performing through stage work, music, guest roles, and live appearances, showing a career that was never only built around one sitcom badge. Barney Miller felt real because he listened more than he shouted. He handled oddball arrests, tired cops, and endless complaints without turning into a cartoon boss. In a comedy full of New York noise, his quiet control made the precinct feel human. Det Wojo was the squad's big-hearted, rough-edged cop, loud, emotional, and still learning how to understand the city around him. He could be blunt, confused, or way too intense, but there was always a decent guy underneath the badge. When the series began in 1975, Max Gail was 31, which gave Wojo that young, messy, still-growing energy. Currently 83, he has carried a long-acting life well beyond the precinct. Later viewers saw him in General Hospital, Sons and Daughters, and many film and television roles, but Det Wojo remains the part that gave him that unforgettable mix of muscle, awkwardness, and heart. Det Wojo was funny because he was not slick. He reacted too fast, said the wrong thing, and slowly learned as the episode moved along. That made him feel strangely lovable, the kind of cop who could frustrate you one minute and win you back the next. Dietrich Sergeant Arthur Dietrich was the squad's dry intellectual, calm, strange, and always ready with a piece of knowledge nobody asked for. While everyone else reacted like tired New York cops, Dietrich could turn a simple case into a weird little lecture on philosophy, psychology, or human behavior. Steve Landesberg was 38, and that cool, offbeat delivery made the character stand out fast. Steve Landesberg passed away in 2010 at the age of 74 after colon cancer. His death came after a career that mixed stand-up comedy, sitcom work, and sharp character roles. Later viewers may also remember him from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where that same dry timing still landed perfectly. Dietrich was funny because he never seemed impressed by the chaos around him. He could be surrounded by criminals, complaints, shouting, and total precinct nonsense, then answer with something so calm and oddly smart that the room almost froze. He gave the show its strangest brain. Det Phil Fish was the worn-out old detective who looked exhausted before the day even started. Slow-moving, grumpy, and always dealing with some new complaint about his health or home life, Fish brought a beautifully deadpan sadness into the squad room. Abe Vigoda was 53 when the show began, but his tired face made Fish feel much older in the funniest possible way. Abe Vigoda passed away in 2016 at the age of 94 from natural causes. Long before and after this role, he was already unforgettable as Tessio in The Godfather, and his famously already dead public image became one of Hollywood's strangest running jokes for decades. Fish was comedy built out of exhaustion. He did not chase punchlines, he just walked in looking like life had already won. That dry, miserable energy made him oddly lovable. In a precinct full of noise, Fish could steal a scene just by sighing, blinking, or complaining like the world owed him an apology. Carl Levitt was the short, pushy, overeager officer who wanted respect so badly you could almost see it buzzing off him. He was always trying to be noticed, always trying to prove he belonged, and usually making the room more annoying in the process. When Ron Carey joined the show, he was 39, and that nervous little bulldog energy made Levitt instantly specific. Ron Carey passed away in 2007 at the age of 71 after a stroke. His career also had a strong Mel Brooks connection, with roles in Silent Movie, High Anxiety, History of the World, Part 1, and other comedies where his compact, fast-talking presence worked beautifully. Levitt was funny because he was exhausting in a very human way. He wanted a promotion, wanted approval, wanted somebody to take him seriously, and the harder he pushed, the worse it usually got. He gave the squad room a different kind of chaos, small in size, huge in neediness. Frank Luger was the loud old inspector who could turn a simple visit to the squad room into a full blast of old-school police nonsense. He came in with big stories, outdated attitudes, and that booming confidence of a man who believed the past was always better. James Gregory was 63 when the show began, which gave Luger that perfect, retired but still bossy energy. James Gregory passed away in 2002 at the age of 90 from natural causes. Before this role, he had already built a long career playing tough men, officials, military types, and loud authority figures in shows and films like The Manchurian Candidate, The Twilight Zone, and The Lawless Years. Luger was funny because he felt like the old nipped crashing into the newer, tired, more self-aware squad. He was too loud, too proud, and usually a step behind the times, but that made him useful. Every time he showed up, the precinct suddenly had to deal with history walking through the door. Det Sergeant Nick Yamana was the squad's calm, dry card player with a cigarette, a deadpan face, and some of the worst coffee in television history. He never looked like he was trying to be funny, which made him even funnier. Jack Sue was 57 when the series began, and his relaxed timing gave Yamana a quiet rhythm nobody else had. Jack Sue passed away in 1979 at the age of 61 after esophageal cancer. His death came while the show was still running, and the cast later honored him in a rare tribute episode. Before television made him widely known, he had worked in nightclubs, stage productions, and flower drum song. Yamana's comedy was all in the stillness. He did not need to shout, panic, or chase attention. He could sit at his desk, deal cards, serve terrible coffee, and somehow steal the room. Losing him changed the rhythm of the squad, because his quiet weirdness was impossible to replace. Elizabeth Miller was Barney's wife, the person who showed the other side of his life beyond the precinct. She was warm, smart, and sometimes frustrated in a way that made their marriage feel real instead of sitcom perfect. Barbara Barrie was 43 when the show began, bringing a grounded adult softness to the role. Today, at 95, she is still remembered for a career that went far beyond this character. Her work included Breaking Away, Private Benjamin, stage roles, and many television appearances, and she also became an author, writing books for young readers after years of acting. Elizabeth helped keep Barney from becoming only the captain at work. Through her, viewers saw the tired husband behind the desk, the man trying to balance family, marriage, and a job that swallowed his day. She gave the show a quieter domestic note outside the squad room. Lieutenant Ben Scanlon was the kind of internal affairs guy every cop in the squad room hated seeing walk through the door. Cold, suspicious, and always smelling for corruption, he brought a different kind of pressure into the precinct. Not street crime, but the fear of being watched from inside the department. George Murdoch was 44 when he gave Scanlon that hard, unpleasant edge. George Murdoch passed away in 2012 at the age of 81 after cancer. His long career moved through television, film, and voice work, with roles in Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, The X-Files, and many other shows where his deep voice and stern face made him instantly useful. Scanlon worked as the guy nobody wanted around. He did not bring warmth, jokes, or squad room friendship. He brought suspicion. And in a show built around tired cops trying to survive another day, that made him the perfect person to make everyone uncomfortable. Ray Brewer was one of those precinct-side characters who added to the busy, unpredictable traffic of the squad room. He felt like the kind of man who could walk into a police station with a problem, a complaint, or a story that made everyone's day a little more complicated. John Dullihan was 44 when he brought that everyday New York character energy to the role. John Dullihan passed away in 2009 at the age of 78, with no widely reported cause of death. Across his career, he appeared in many television shows and films, often playing working men, officials, and side characters who helped a scene feel grounded instead of overly polished. Ray Brewer belongs to the texture of the show. Barney Miller was never only about the detectives. It was also about the people who came through that room. Characters like Ray helped make the precinct feel like a real public place. Tired, crowded, strange, and very New York. Bruno Bender was one of those oddball characters who fit right into the precinct's parade of strange New York problems. He had the kind of rough, comic presence that could make a scene feel offbeat without needing to take over the whole episode. Stanley Brock was 43 when he stepped into that world. Stanley Brock passed away in 1991 at the age of 59 after a heart attack. He later became familiar to sitcom fans as Nouveau on Perfect Strangers, and his career included guest roles across television, where his sharp, slightly scrappy energy made him stand out even in small parts. Bruno Bender feels like part of the show's street-level weirdness. The squad room was always full of people who looked like they had wandered in from a real city block, not a casting catalog. That was the charm. Every side character brought a little more noise, trouble, and personality through the door. Marty Morrison was one of the show's most memorable visitors, theatrical, nervous, and openly gay in a way that felt pretty bold for 70s network sitcom television. He brought a different kind of energy into the precinct, not as a cheap throwaway, but as someone funny, human, and impossible to ignore. Jack DeLeon was 50 when he first brought Marty into that squad room chaos. Jack DeLeon passed away in 2006 at the age of 81, with no widely reported cause of death. His career moved through television, voice work, and comedy, including roles in The Smurfs, Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, and many guest spots where his voice and timing did a lot of the work. Marty gave the show a little extra nerve. Barney Miller could be silly, but it also had a habit of letting unusual people walk into the room and be treated like people, not just jokes. For a 70s sitcom, that mattered more than it might look at first. Leon Roth was one of those older, slightly eccentric men who could walk into the precinct and immediately make the day stranger. He had that classic New York guest character feeling. A little confused, a little funny, and just specific enough to feel like someone the detectives might actually have to deal with. Ralph Manza was 53 when he played Leon. Ralph Manza passed away in 2000 at the age of 78, after a heart attack. He spent decades popping up across television and film, with appearances in shows like Seinfeld, The Odd Couple, Get Smart, and many other series where his nervous, talky style fit perfectly. Leon Roth belonged to the human traffic of the squad room. The show was at its best when regular city people came through the door carrying complaints, odd stories, or problems no one really wanted to solve. Leon added one more strange little piece to that very lived-in precinct world. Arnold Ripner was the slick, annoying defense lawyer who could make the entire squad room tense the second he arrived. He was smug, clever, and always ready to turn police frustration into his own advantage. Alex Henteloff was 32 when he gave Ripner that perfect mix of legal polish and irritating confidence. Currently 84, he has lived a quieter public life than many classic TV character actors, but his face still rings a bell for viewers who know 70s and 80s television. His career included appearances in The Bob Newhart Show, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Night Court, and other shows where he often played sharp, unusual, or slightly slippery men. Ripner was fun because he made the cops work harder. He was not a criminal, but he was absolutely a headache. In a precinct full of tired detectives, having a lawyer who knew exactly how to push their buttons gave the comedy a nice little extra sting. Angelo Dodi was one of those strange precinct visitors who felt like he could only exist in a show about New York at its weirdest. He brought a nervous, offbeat kind of energy into the room, the type of character who made the detectives pause, stare, and silently wonder how this became their problem. Don Calfa was 35 when he played Angelo. Don Calfa passed away in 2016 at the age of 76, with the cause of death not widely reported. He built a long career as a character actor, later becoming a cult favorite through Return of the Living Dead, while also appearing in films and TV shows where his unusual face and frantic timing made him hard to forget. Angelo fits the show's oddball rhythm perfectly. The squad room was never just about crime, it was about people. Confused people, angry people, lonely people, and very strange people. Characters like Angelo made the precinct feel like the whole city had wandered in and taken a seat. Arthur Duncan was part of the steady stream of unusual people who came through the 12th precinct and left the detectives with one more headache. He had that nervous, lived-in quality that fit the show's world. Not too polished, not too broad, just another city character with a problem. J.J. Barrie was 42 when he stepped into the role. J.J. Barrie passed away in 1990 at the age of 58 after a heart attack. He was a familiar character actor across television and film, with credits in shows like MASH, The Jeffersons, and The Rockford Files, often playing men who felt ordinary, funny, worn down, or slightly suspicious. Arthur Duncan reminds you why the show's guest roles mattered. The main detectives had the desks, the jokes, and the regular chemistry. But the visitors brought the city inside. Every new face gave the room a different problem, a different mood, and another reason for Barney to sigh. Harry Kruger was one of those older New York characters who could make a squad room scene feel instantly sharper. Thin, nervous, and full of that classic comic timing, he had the kind of presence that made even a small role feel like it had a whole backstory behind it. Phil Leeds was 58 when he played Harry. Phil Leeds passed away in 1998 at the age of 82 after pneumonia. His face and voice became familiar across decades of television, from Ally McBeal and Roseanne to The Golden Girls, Friends, and countless guest roles where he could steal a scene in seconds. Harry Kruger belonged to the great old TV tradition of unforgettable small parts. He did not need to be central to the series. He just needed to walk in, look worried, say something perfectly strange, and suddenly the precinct felt more alive, more crowded, and more unmistakably New York. Stefan Kopechny was one of those tense, unusual precinct visitors who made the detectives slow down and actually listen. He brought a more serious, slightly uneasy energy into the room, the kind of presence that reminded viewers the squad was dealing with real people, not just punchlines. Kenneth Tigar was 32 when he played Stefan. Today, at 84, he has had a long career across television, film, stage, and voice work. Viewers may recognize him from The Avengers, Lethal Weapon, The Man in the High Castle, and many guest roles where he often brought intelligence, intensity, or quiet authority to a scene. Stefan fit the show's mix of comedy and human oddness. The precinct could be funny, but it was also full of people carrying fear, confusion, anger, or loneliness. Characters like him helped keep the jokes from feeling empty, because the city outside always felt real. Philip Brower was part of that parade of older New York characters who could walk into the 12th precinct and instantly change the rhythm of the room. He had the formal, slightly worn quality of a man with a story, a complaint, or a problem that was about to become Barney's headache. Peter Hobbs was 57 when he played Philip. Peter Hobbs passed away in 2011 at the age of 92 from natural causes. He worked for decades across television, film, and stage, with appearances in The Andromeda Strain, Sleeper, The Lady in Red, and many guest roles where his calm, serious face made him a natural fit for doctors, officials, and worried men. Philip Brower feels like one more piece of the city coming through the door. That was the show's gift, turning small visits into little portraits of New York life. One man, one desk, one strange situation, and suddenly the precinct felt bigger than a sitcom set. Joe Wheaton was one of those guest characters who belonged to the tired, talky, very human world of the precinct. He had the feel of a regular city man caught in some kind of trouble or misunderstanding, the sort of person the detectives had to deal with between coffee, paperwork, and another weird phone call. Rod Colbin was 51 when he played Joe. Rod Colbin passed away in 2007 at the age of 83, with no widely reported cause of death. His career included film, television, and stage work, with roles in shows like The Streets of San Francisco, Lou Grant, and other productions where he often played grounded, everyday men. Joe Wheaton was not built to be flashy. He was part of the show's ordinary human traffic, the people who came in angry, confused, embarrassed, or just tired. Those smaller characters helped make the precinct feel like a real public room where the whole city kept turning up. Mr. Buckholtz was one of those official-looking men who fit right into the precinct's world of complaints, procedures, and people nobody really wanted to deal with. He had that slightly stiff, adult seriousness that could make a simple scene feel more bureaucratic and more annoying for everyone behind the desks. Philip Sterling was 52 when he played Mr. Buckholtz. Philip Sterling passed away in 1998 at the age of 76, with no widely reported cause of death. He worked steadily across television for years, appearing in shows like The Flying Nun, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, Dallas, and many guest roles where he often played doctors, lawyers, executives, and authority figures. Mr. Buckholtz belonged to the kind of city business the squad had to absorb every day. Not every visitor was wild or hilarious. Some were formal, difficult, or just another problem wrapped in paperwork. That gave the precinct its tired, real-world rhythm. Lana Lane was one of those sharp, lived-in guest characters who could walk into the squad room and immediately make the scene feel a little more unpredictable. She carried that old New York TV energy, funny, nervous, and specific enough that even a smaller role felt like it had a whole life outside the frame. Peggy Pope was 45 when she played Lana. Peggy Pope passed away in 2020 at the age of 91, after living for years with bipolar disorder and dementia. Her career reached far beyond this role, especially with her memorable work in 9 to 5, where she played Margaret, the office worker known for her atta-girl moments. Lana Lane fit the show's messy human traffic. The precinct was not just cops and criminals, it was people coming in with problems, habits, fears, and strange little stories. Peggy Pope had the kind of timing that made a side character feel instantly alive. Bernice Fish was Phil Fish's exhausted wife, the unseen pressure behind so many of his complaints, and one of the funniest pieces of his home life. When she appeared, she brought that cranky, married-for-years rhythm that made Fish's misery feel even more complete. Florence Stanley was 50 when she brought Bernice into the show. Florence Stanley passed away in 2003 at the age of 79 after a stroke. Her voice and sharp comic timing carried into many roles, including My Two Dads, Nurses, and voice work in Dinosaurs, where she gave Grandma Ethel Phillips a whole different kind of sitcom bite. Bernice made Fish funnier because she completed the picture. His tired complaints were one thing, but seeing the marriage behind them gave the joke more weight. They felt like a couple who had been arguing forever, and somehow that made them weirdly perfect together. Mr. Roston was one of those older precinct visitors who felt like he came in carrying a whole lifetime of New York problems. He had that worn, character-actor presence that made even a small scene feel specific, the kind of man who could sit across from the detectives and instantly seem like he had a story nobody asked for. Arnie Freeman was 66 when he played Mr. Roston. Arnie Freeman passed away in 1986 at the age of 77. His career stretched across stage, film, and television, with appearances in shows like Car 54, Where Are You?, The Phil Silvers Show, and many classic New York-flavored roles where he brought that sharp, lived-in city energy. Mr. Roston fit perfectly into the show's world of tired cops and strange visitors. Barney Miller always felt like the whole city was walking through one squad room, one complaint at a time. Characters like him gave that room history, age, and a little more street-level truth. Mrs. Pierce was one of those sharp, older women who could walk into the precinct and immediately change the mood. She had that tough, funny, no-nonsense quality that made her feel like someone the detectives could not easily talk around. Florence Henteloff was 52 when she brought that bite to Mrs. Pierce. Florence Henteloff passed away in 1986 at the age of 63 after a battle with lung cancer. Her career went back decades, from radio comedy to television, and later viewers also remembered her from Night Court, where her raspy voice and cranky timing made her a perfect sitcom presence. Mrs. Pierce worked because she brought a different kind of pressure into the squad room. She was not some helpless old lady being pushed through a scene. She had attitude, history, and enough edge to make the cops pay attention. That kind of character made the precinct feel more alive. Robert Joseph Wilmore was one of those serious guest characters who gave the precinct a heavier, more grounded feeling. He brought in that adult, dramatic energy that could slow the room down for a moment and remind viewers that behind the jokes, the cops were still dealing with real people. Fred Sadoff was 48 when he played Robert Joseph Wilmore. Fred Sadoff passed away in 1994 at the age of 67 after AIDS-related complications. His career included theater, film, and television, with work in productions like The Poseidon Adventure, Papillon, and many guest roles where he often brought quiet authority and emotional weight. Robert Joseph Wilmore gave the show a more serious shade. Barney Miller could be dry and funny, but it was never just a joke machine. Characters like him helped the series balance oddball comedy with the feeling that every person walking through that precinct door had a life outside the punchline. Det Janice Wentworth was the smart, capable woman who brought a different kind of energy into the squad room. She was sharp enough to handle herself around the men, but the show also used her presence to show how awkward and uneven police culture could be for women at the time. Linda Lavin was 37 when she played Det. Janice Wentworth. Linda Lavin passed away in 2024 at the age of 87 after complications from lung cancer. Her career, of course, became much bigger with Alice, where she turned a working single mother into one of 70s and 80s TV's most familiar faces. She also had a long stage career, with Broadway work that showed just how strong she was beyond sitcom television. Janice Wentworth feels important because she hints at the show Barney Miller might have become in another direction. She brought intelligence, pressure, and a needed female presence into that male-heavy precinct. Even with limited time, she made the room feel less predictable. Norman DeLuca was one of those street-level characters who fit naturally into the tired, talky world of the 12th Precinct. He had that rough New York flavor. Not too polished, not too broad, just specific enough to feel like someone the detectives might actually have to deal with on a long shift. Mario Rocuso was 34 when he played Norman DeLuca. Mario Rocuso passed away in 2021 at the age of 80, with no widely reported cause of death. His career included many film and television roles, often playing cops, crooks, workers, and rough-around-the-edges men who felt right at home in urban stories. Norman DeLuca belonged to that steady stream of people who made the precinct feel alive. Barney Miller was never just about big plots. It was about faces, voices, complaints, and weird little encounters. Characters like him helped the squad room feel like a real New York room, full of people coming in from the street. Det. Chano Amenguale was the passionate, sharp-tempered detective who brought fire into the early squad. He could be funny, proud, and intense, but he also gave the show one of its most serious emotional moments, when the job finally hit him too hard. Gregory Sierra was 37 when he gave Chano that mix of heat and vulnerability. Gregory Sierra passed away in 2021 at the age of 83 after cancer. Before and after Barney Miller, he was already familiar from Sanford and Son, Soap, Hill Street Blues, and many other TV roles where his presence always felt alive, streetwise, and full of nerve. Chano left a strong mark even though he was not there for the whole run. His breakdown after a shooting is still one of those scenes that reminds you Barney Miller was never just a joke machine. The show could be funny, then suddenly very honest about what police work did to people. Det Ron Harris was the stylish, intellectual detective who looked like he had stepped into the precinct from a much smoother world. He was polished, ambitious, and always a little more refined than the room around him, whether he was talking about police work, writing, money, or his own future. Ron Glass was 29 when he brought that cool, sharp confidence to Det. Ron Harris. Ron Glass passed away in 2016 at the age of 71 after respiratory failure. His career later reached a whole new generation through Firefly and Serenity, where he played Shepherd Book, a very different role but still one with intelligence, warmth, and quiet mystery. Det Ron Harris gave the squad room style. While the others looked worn down by the job, Harris often seemed like he was already planning his next chapter. That contrast made him funny, but also fresh. He brought brains, elegance, and a little ego into a precinct that badly needed all three. Which cast member's story surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch the next Then and Now video.